News.
It's a Classic Cars Saturday night at the Event Center. Classic Cars, live music, and good times. The Classic Cars roll in from 5 to 9 p.m. Bring your friends and enjoy food and drink from the Event Center patio and Greek Street. Classic Cars and live music from the Band Basement Cafe. It's a free event. There's no admission charge to see these classic cars and listen to the live music. Bring your friends. A Classic Cars Saturday night at the Event Center, 12 North and 200 East behind the Cache Valley Mall.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology is Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Paul Daines by calling 753-HEAR or visit cachehearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on this Saturday morning. Another smoky, hazy Saturday morning. Unfortunately, it's something that we're getting all too used to here in northern Utah, as this smoke from neighboring wildfires just doesn't seem to want to go away. We'll feel right in with the guru himself, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden. You know, normally, Mark, we come in and we have a quick powwow of what we're going to be talking about this morning, and you and I got off on talking about backpacking and camping, and we didn't talk at all about what we're going to talk about on the show.
It's a good thing I come with a plan, you know, most of the time, so that's all right.
We got off on some tangents this morning, but
that was a good conversation, though.
Yeah, it's been a great summer, despite some of the challenges that have existed with weather and heat and lack of water.
Yeah.
It's still been a really great summer.
It's amazing how well the gardens are producing considering the conditions that we've had. So we've had, extremely hot temperatures in June and July, not very much water, hard start to the year. It was kind of cool and cold. I mean, May was really exceptionally cold.
Yeah.
When you think about it, June was extra hot, but May was exceptionally cold. And so it was kind of a slow start for everybody. But I'll tell you what, we picked couple bushels of tomatoes this week, and we froze like 16 quarts of corn, and cucumbers are coming like crazy, and we've got potatoes I probably need to dig and harvest. So those are some of the things I wanted to talk about today for sure. It's like it's time to harvest the onions, it's time to harvest the potatoes. It's time to start thinking about planting garlic. So it's garlic season's coming up. Bulbs will be showing up here pretty soon. But a lot of harvest coming on right now, and people are trying to figure out what to do with it. And then I've got a lot of customers coming in. They're like, I got a ton of tomatoes, but they're just not ripening up. What can I do to get them to ripen up? So we've got some great topics we can talk about today to kind of help people enjoy the harvest, enjoy the fruits of their labors after working all summer. Things should be coming on like crazy. I do have some new pumpkins that I tried this year that I'm really, really excited about. Kind of sounds strange that I'm excited about the pumpkins.
Pumpkins.
If we had Jim Siemens on, one of the giant pumpkin growers, then we'd be excited about talking about pumpkins. But usually it's just like, we'll throw them in this part of the garden and
see what happens.
Kind of forget about them and just let them do their thing. But I tried some new pumpkins this year. One's called Warty Goblin, and Warty Goblin's like one of the warded pumpkins, so it's got the little funny growths all over it.
Gourd look.
Yeah, well, it's got that deep orange undercolor, so the not the underside, but just kind of the background color is like that deep orange, but the warts are kind of a neon green. And
really?
Yeah. And I thought it was a small pumpkin. I thought it was going to be, like a 5 to 10-pounder. Well, they're turning out more like 20-pounders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're big, and so I'm really, really excited about it. And I planted 2 hills, and they're producing like crazy. I think we've got about 15 or 20 pumpkins off the 2 hills. Yeah, so they're going nuts. And they haven't started to color up yet, but you can see what they're going to look like. And so I'm like really excited about those. It's called Warty Goblin. It's kind of expensive. It was like 25 cents a seed for it. But, I mean, 10 seeds, I'm into it, $2.50, and I'm going to get 20 pumpkins off of it.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that. And then another new one that we grew is called Large Marge. And if you remember Pee-wee, Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Pee-wee Herman.
Yeah. So Large Marge was in the first Pee-wee movie, and so they named this after her. And it's a 30 to 40 pounder. So it's a big pumpkin, and it's vined all over the place. But again, a couple hills, and I've got probably 12 or 15 pumpkins, and they are massive. They're massive, yeah. Without being like giant pumpkins, but these are big, and they look like a nice colored pumpkin. They're not going to be funny colored, so kind of excited about those.
Well, and we were out in the yard over the last couple of days, and everybody's yard is finally greened up again.
Yeah.
All of the rain that we had last week, it just brought everybody's yard back to life.
It's amazing what 2 inches of rain will do to everybody's yard. I haven't had to water my garden for 10 days.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything with the garden for 10 days except watch the weeds grow.
Oh, and it took off like crazy.
The weeds are just like everywhere, and I'm looking at the garden, I'm just going, nah, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let them do it, because it's like it'd take me a couple days just to go through and just get all the weeds out, because there's just so many of them, and everything's so overgrown. I can't run the tiller up and down the rows anymore, so it's like me and a hoe, and it's just like, I'll just let them go.
You get to the point where you're just, and that's what we were doing this week, just down on our hands and knees trying to pull weeds
stuff
around plants. And,
Yep. And some of them are getting really tall. I mean, they've grown really, really fast. Like, I put down fertilizer for our corn, for our second batch of corn, right before it rained. So it was like perfect timing. Now I've got weeds that are like 18 inches coming up in the corn. And I was just like, oh, man, it's like I fertilized the corn and the weeds at the same time. But got some other new varieties that we have tried. So a new cucumber is called Burpless Supreme, and it's a 6 to 7 inch, probably 7 or 8 inch long slicing cucumber. Really, really mild flavor. Wow. I mean, it's got some really, really nice qualities to it. Been very impressed with that one. I planted that really late. I think it was about the 1st of July. We got the sample finally and planted those. But they're producing cucumbers already. About 50 days, 55 days, it was producing cucumbers. So I'm pretty impressed with that one. And then I got some samples of some new tomatoes. And the new tomatoes, those came really late also, but they are improvements on some older varieties that have been around for a long time, some tried and true and proven varieties. So we're talking Big Beef, Better Boy, Celebrity, and Lemon Boy. The grower, the company that produced those varieties many years ago. I mean, these are probably 30 to 40-year-old varieties, so they wouldn't be technically heirlooms, but they are classics, is what we would call them, because they've been around for a long time, and they're just proven tomatoes that just produce year after year after year. Well, they've taken those varieties and they've hybridized them slightly a little bit more to increase their disease resistance and to increase their flavor. And so they're a little bit sweeter. They've got a little bit richer flavor, and super, super disease resistant as well too. So I got a sample of those, started them, and transplanted them out. I mean, they were just little guys.
Just getting started.
I mean, I got those about the 1st of July too, and I was like, oh, what the heck? Let's see if we can get them to grow. And so I started the seeds, and we just transplanted them the 1st of this. It wasn't even the 1st of this month. It's probably about the 10th of this month. And I transplanted them into pots on my driveway. And so I put them in some big 20-inch pots, and they were just little plants, and put some really great soil in there. I've fertilized them. I've used our tomato secret recipe on them, and put some aquadomes on them to get them to grow really fast. They are 2 feet tall already, so they're growing like crazy. So I'm hoping that we'll get some fruit set here pretty soon. But if the weather changes and it turns really cold, end of September, and they're not quite ready yet, I can just bring them into the greenhouse.
You got them in pots,
yeah. So we thought we'd give these guys a shot and see what they really taste like. So I've got 4 new tomatoes, a cucumber, and a bunch of new pumpkins that are all just like brand new varieties that we're excited about experimenting with and trying them out.
And over the last couple of weeks now, we've talked about harvesting and how to be able to take care of potatoes and how to take care of onions. And I think, the only thing we haven't figured out yet is how to take care of all the extra zucchini and squash everybody has. And
there's a lot.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, hey, that's all right. That's part of the fun part of the garden is, getting all this produce that you were anticipating, and then trying to figure out what to do with it to make more salsa or to make zucchini bread, or just to find ways to utilize it. And then one of the greatest things we've got here in the valley is we've got the food pantry. And if you've got excess, you can always take stuff down to the food pantry and share it with other people. Yeah. So that's a great opportunity to be able to share some of the excess produce that we've got, because really when it comes down to it, there's no way we're going to use all the tomatoes that we've got. There's just no way. But we got to get out there and pick them. But that's one of the things I want to talk about today too. And at Anderson's we've got our cash sale going on right now, and so cash sale is still ongoing. We've got some really nice shrubs, some really great trees still in stock. And if you come in and you pay with cash, if you pay with bills with green bills with the dead presidents on them, then you get a 50% discount off of a regular price. If you pay with a credit card or a debit card or a check, you're going to get 35% off. So if you pay with cash, you get that extra 15% off, up to 50% off your purchase. And that's for trees, flowering trees, evergreens, shrubs, vines, and then all our perennials are on sale as well too. And they are buy one get one free. So it's basically the same deal. And probably this week we'll have some more fall blooming perennials in. They won't be on the sale since they'll be brand new, but we'll bring in mums and asters and some of those fall bloomers in as well too. So you can add a little bit of color to your yard. Oh, that's the other thing. We brought in some new sunflowers this year. They're called Black-Eyed Girl. And they're an annual, but they're smaller. They're about they end up turning into about a 3x3 bush, but each plant will produce about 1,000 flowers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they have been unbelievable. They've been just gorgeous. And the flowers aren't as dense as, like, say, an annual petunia or a marigold, where the flowers are all bunched together. They're a little bit separated, but these plants have bloomed and bloomed and bloomed and bloomed. And they've been great. We put 3 of them in front of our house. We've got some at the store that we put in pots in front of the store. And they've been awesome. So Black-Eyed Girl, and they have produced, literally 1,000 flowers each plant. They just have gone crazy. They make good cut flowers too, so you can cut those off and enjoy those.
And that's Black-Eyed Girl.
Black-Eyed Girl, Yep. I don't know if it's black-eyed. It's brown-eyed girl.
Oh,
there we go.
Yep,
brown-eyed girl. Yep, and it's a new variety that came out just a couple years ago, and it comes only in like 2-gallon containers, so you can't find it in like a little pony pack. It only comes in a 2-gallon container. But I'll tell you what, they have produced flowers like crazy all summer long. So they've been great. They've been a lot of fun. So cash sale going on at the store. We definitely want to talk about harvesting tomatoes, how to get your tomatoes to ripen up. We're going to talk about onions and potatoes because it's time to harvest those. We can definitely talk about planting garlic. I've got 20 varieties of garlic in stock right now. So a lot of fun varieties of garlic to try out. If you want to join us here on the Garden Guide, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. Will and I are just having a great conversation. The phone lines are open if you want to join us.
Call in with your questions, your comments, and you mentioned tomatoes. That was one of the things that we spent this week doing, making up some salsa. And that is always something that's difficult. You have a lot of tomatoes, they come on all at the same time, and sometimes they just don't ripen up as fast as you
Exactly. So some of the things we can do, here it is the end of August, some of the things you can do to get your tomatoes to ripen up a little bit faster is, one, get a little bit more sunlight in there. So my plants have just grown like crazy this year. They are just huge. Some of them are 6 feet tall and 4 feet around, and cages aren't even holding them up. They're just like crawling all over the ground now. Yeah, they're just all over the place.
Everywhere.
You got to trim those vines back a little bit. So we're going to do that this week. We're going to get in there and trim some of the excess vining back, because the fruit that sets from here on out, it's never gonna ripen up. So we're just going to try and get the fruit that is set to ripen up. So you want to trim some of that excess foliage back so that the sunlight can get in there and ripen the tomatoes up. The other thing you can do is stop fertilizing, so no more fertilizer. If you keep fertilizing and really watering the tomatoes, they will think that they are invincible and they're never going to die, even though the weather is changing. They just keep going. And we want them to realize that fall is here, winter's coming, and it's time to reproduce themselves. And that's how you get ripe fruit, is you kind of stress the plants just a little bit so that they really understand that fall's coming and they need to reproduce themselves. And so cut back on the watering. Let them stress in between waterings. I just watered mine last night, but like I said, it's been 10 days since I've watered them. So they were starting to stress just a little bit. And so stress them a little bit in between each watering. We don't want them to like completely dry out, but we want them to realize that, fall's here and it's time to get going. And then no more fertilizer. And then the other thing is calcium. Calcium really helps to get the fruit to ripen up. And so a lot of people have fought with blossom end rot this year, and calcium helps with the blossom end rot. Well, it also helps to ripen the fruit up. So if you spray them with a little bit of calcium or calcium and magnesium, so a CalMag product or a yield booster from High Yield, then that's going to help ripen your fruit up a little bit as well too. So it'll speed up that ripening process.
And for people who aren't familiar with end rot, that's usually that black.
Yep,
right on the very bottom of
the fruit. Yep. And so what happens is blossom end rot is aggravated by drought conditions, which we've had, obviously, and heat and calcium deficiency. So we have a lot of calcium naturally in our soil, but it's really slow to move through the plants. And so to correct the blossom end rot, you want to apply calcium either in a calcium nitrate type product or calcium chloride or calcium magnesium calcium combo in a liquid form, so the plants can absorb that in and run it through the circulatory system. And the furthest distance that the calcium has to go is like from the root system all the way up through the plant, all the way out to the fruit, and then to the very end of the fruit, which is where the blossom was formed. And sometimes it doesn't quite get all the way out there, and so you get these brown sunken spots on the bottom of the tomatoes. And so best way to control that is to use a type of calcium that's going to move quickly in the plant. So calcium nitrate's great because the calcium's piggybacked on nitrogen, and so the plant utilizes and moves the nitrogen very quickly. It just kind of pulls the calcium along with it. And if you do a liquid form like the calcium chloride or the CalMag, then you can just spray that on the plants. It absorbs it in through leaves, also in a very mobile form, the calcium, and it will help your plants so that they don't get the blossom end rot, but it'll help them ripen up faster as well too. So very inexpensive products too. They're not costly, and they will do a great job, and they'll improve your yield, not just on your tomatoes, but you can use it on squashes and peppers as well too, which are also inclined to get blossom end rot. So
we got to come back and talk more about tomatoes coming up in just a minute. But we have Catherine joining us on the line from Dayton, Idaho. Catherine, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. I have a problem that I can't do anything about now. I just want to prevent it from next year happening. Yeah. I had a plum tree. It's an Italian plum full of plums. And I went out there after the last windstorm, and most of them were on the ground. We've had wind before, and I've never lost them like that. What would make that happen?
That's a great question. Probably something environmental. Again, really hot, dry summer. The fruit has ripened really quickly, so it seems like the fruit's
it's not like it's ripe. They're still very sour.
Yeah, not quite there yet. But what's happening? What's happening is
them up and use them.
Yeah, and apricots did the same thing, and so it's just like we had a really dry winter, we had a really dry spring, And like our apricots came on just like super fast. Like they were not ripe, and then all of a sudden they were just like completely falling off the tree. So we're seeing some unusual ripening processes this year with the way the weather has been. For next year, to prevent that, I would use a fertilizer on your trees right now. In fact, I'm going to fertilize a lot of my fruit trees this week and get a little bit of nutrients, some micronutrients out there so it can build the strength back up. But then make sure you are watering your trees occasionally through the fall. So deep water them, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks so that there's some good soil moisture out there. And if it looks like the ground's going to really freeze and we're going to get some bad weather, water them one more time before the ground freezes. Usually around the 1st of November, right after Halloween, good time to just do one good heavy watering and then just kind of see what the weather does. But usually after that, around the 10th, 15th, 20th of November, the ground really freezes up. And when the ground freezes, then it's hard to get moisture to penetrate in. But if there's soil moisture there already, then it kind of retains that moisture throughout the wintertime, and it will keep that moisture for your trees to pick up a little bit of moisture all through the winter. And so make sure you water really late. Fertilize now, but don't fertilize anymore through the fall, and then fertilize them first thing in the spring as well to like build that soil back up. And
so what do I fertilize them with?
Oh, there's a lot of good tree and shrub food from Fertilome. There's a fruit tree and citrus food that Fertilome has as well too. 1616 would be great. Try and use a fertilizer that has micronutrients in there as well too, because the plants will pull the micronutrients from the soil quite frequently, and your fruit will decline, and it won't. Tree just won't perform the way it ought to. Okay. And I think a lot of people forget that fruit trees produce almost on a yearly basis, and so if you're not fertilizing them and they're not getting the nutrition that they need, they won't produce as well as they ought to. And your fruit will be small. It will ripen irregularly. It'll fall off the tree prematurely.
Sounds like what's happening to mine.
Yeah.
Kind of sad to see all that on the ground and have it be so bitter. Just
not ready to go. Yeah, not ready to go. No. So little fertilizer now, and then hit it again next spring, and then make sure and keep that soil moisture up through the fall. You don't have to water like every other day. We're talking every 2 or 3 weeks, a good deep watering so that there's some good soil moisture, and hopefully Mother Nature will cooperate, and we'll keep getting good rainstorms throughout September and October just to build that soil moisture back up before winter sets in. So. Yeah,
it's kind of been a tad dry.
It has been. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, you don't know anybody who needs some crookneck squash, do you?
Yeah, all your neighbors, they could use some.
Yeah, right. I'll leave it on their porch at night.
There you go. So,
and if you're ever down in Logan, Catherine, you can always drop it off, as Mark mentioned. Matt Whitaker at the Food Pantry would love that crookneck squash.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Great way to be able to share that produce with others.
I mean, because right now we've got so many tomatoes that are coming on. I mean, we're going to bottle till our little fingers turn red, and we're going to still have so many left over. So we'll just end up taking some of our excess down. If we don't have neighbors that want to use it, we'll take it down to the food pantry, and that's a great option for excess food.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Hey, thanks for calling this morning, Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Our secretary brought in a bag of peaches this year. Yeah. She was sharing them with everybody this week, and she made the comment. She said, this year has been really weird because I had a lot of peaches. They came on, but they were really small. And they came off the tree real fast. Ours, with that windstorm we had last week, took all of our peaches off. Took about half of our apples off.
Yeah.
And with the hot conditions that we had, it left the tree just already so stressed that wind came in and the tree's like
dropped all the fruit
I'm
off.
Done.
Yep, our peaches have been smaller too. Except we planted a new peach last year, and it's called a Saturn peach, and so it's one of the donut peaches that's kind of flat on the top and the bottom, and it looks like rings of Saturn, and it's a white peach. We got 12 peaches off of it this year, and they were unbelievable. They were so good.
Really good.
Oh, just amazing. Yeah, the flavor on them, and they're just so sweet. But they look really funny. I mean, they look like they've been stepped on.
Oh, kind of more of just a flat.
They're flat, yeah. So they're flat. So they're kind of pancake shaped. But they were really, really good. But our peaches are really small, and I thinned them like crazy. I mean, they were just absolutely loaded with fruit, and I thinned probably 70% off of one of our trees, and the fruit's still small.
And it's still
it's still small. It's just weather related, dry winter, dry spring, not enough fertilizer, too hot this summer. Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of different conditions, but the flavor's really good.
Yeah, that was with
awesome.
the peaches that came off of our tree. Oh wow, they were delicious.
Yeah,
and but yeah, you don't even think about it. You think, okay, well, I guess this year's done.
Yeah,
this is the time to start thinking about fertilizing
for
next year.
Yeah, for next year. So I'm going to throw a slow release fertilizer on there, one that's going to last for actually 4 to 6 months. And it's going to break down super gradually. So it's not going to encourage any excess growth on the trees, but it's going to start building the strength back that the trees have lost this year. And then we'll just keep watering occasionally through the fall so that they make sure that they have good soil moisture when the ground freezes and we start getting winter conditions. We don't even want to talk about that yet.
Yeah, no.
End of August.
We're not ready.
We're already talking about like winter coming, but I've heard from a lot of people that La Nina this year, and they're talking, we had 100-year drought this year, or temperatures at least. We might have the opposite and have a lot of snow.
Could break through.
Yeah, have a lot of snow.
We sure could use it. That opens up the phone lines, by the way. It's 753-5868, or you can also call in to 1-800-369-5868 for a question, comment here on the Garden Guide. We were talking about tomatoes earlier, and how to be able to help those tomatoes come on. And you mentioned stress. You want to stress the plant a little bit.
Yes.
How do you know how much is just the right amount before you're actually starving the plant?
So no more fertilizer. We're not going to feed them anymore. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut back the water so that the plants will, kind of wilt during the day. But then when the sun goes down, they'll kind of perk back up at night. We want to get to that point where the plants kind of wilt, and then as soon as the sun goes down, they don't just like perk right back up, but they kind of stay a little bit wilty. That's when we want to water them. And so we're going to stress them just a little bit. So if you've been watering every 2 or 3 days, go an extra day or two and see how the plants, react to it. But by stressing them a little bit in between those waterings, we're not going to kill the plants, but we're just going to force them to ripen up a lot faster. So normally, I will watch those plants, and if it's a warm day and they've been getting a lot of sun exposure, they'll kind of wilt just a little bit.
Yeah.
But then when the sun goes down, those plants just perk right back up. So that's when you want to let them go another day or two, so that when the sun goes down, they don't perk like right back up. Then we water them the next day.
So if those leaves just stay a little curled, then
Yeah.
you can start to water.
So I watered mine last night. They were kind of starting to wilt a little bit. And like I said, it had been 10 days since I watered, but the soil moisture has been great since we got that rainstorm. And the plants are really big and lush, and so they're kind of shading the soil, so the soil's not drying out really fast either. But I'll let them go probably another week after watering them and see what happens.
Really drenching them.
Yeah, but I'm keeping the cantaloupes watered though, because they're really coming. They're really coming on right now. So gotta keep those going.
And for squash plants, of course, you don't necessarily want to stimulate the plant to produce anything more than it already is. But squash plants, you can probably continue to water those.
Yes, yeah. And zucchinis and crooknecks, they use a lot of water. Yeah, and so you want to keep the water up on those, because if you don't, then the quality is going to start to suffer.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure they keep that soil moisture. But we're concerned about ripening up those tomatoes, and if you just keep watering them, they'll just keep producing a lot of green tomatoes. So we gotta force them to ripen up a little bit. So
all right, well, let's go back to the phone lines. We have Carol joining us on the line from Logan. Carol, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Oh, thank you for taking my call. I hope this is something you can help me with. My whole great big lawn is completely covered with little bumps of dirt dug up from underneath.
Yes.
I don't know what it would be, whether it be a vole, a mole, or angleworms, night crawlers.
Yeah, how big are the little mounds?
About the size of a silver dollar.
Okay.
Around.
Probably earthworms then. So the earthworms, as they go through your soil, they will naturally aerate the soil, and as they aerate the soil, there's nowhere for the soil to go as they expand it except up. You know, it can't go horizontally, it can't go down, but there's space for it to expand up, and so you get these little bumps that come up, and so they're actually doing a great job aerating your soil out there, but it does make it lumpy. And
it's terrible. I've never seen anything like it. I can hardly walk on it. But do they? I've never seen one. Do they ever come out of there?
When it rains really hard, you'll see that happen. What we're seeing right now is we've had a large family of skunks in our neighborhood and raccoons as well, and they've been digging into our lawn. And they're not going after like grubs; they're going after the earthworms because we've got so many earthworms, kind of doing the same thing in our yard as well too. So the best way to control those, there's a couple different things you can do. We don't want to kill the earthworms because they're very beneficial for the soil. They're actually great for the soil, but we can decrease their numbers by putting sulfur out there. And so you can put an application of sulfur on your lawn, and it will green your lawn up. Sulfur is great for lowering the pH of the soil, so it frees up a lot of nutrient that's out there but makes it available to the plants. But it won't hurt the earthworms. They just don't like it. They'll move into the flower beds. They'll just go somewhere else. And so once or twice a year, a great idea to put the sulfur on there because it's really good for your soil, but it will kind of discourage some of the population of the earthworms to move to a different location.
Yep. I don't mind the earthworms. I was afraid it might be molds. If you've ever seen one of them, they're scary looking things.
Yeah. Much bigger holes and much bigger mounds of soil, and the voles will kind of do the same thing. And we are seeing a lot of voles, so a lot of vole activity. So keep an eye out for voles as well too. But you'll see more of a distinctive hole that the voles will go down into. The other thing you can do to kind of level that out is make sure and aerate your soil. So even though the earthworms are aerating your soil naturally, it's a good idea to aerate because then it creates a gap where the earthworms can expand that soil out, and it will expand horizontally instead of vertically. And so by aerating, you can help alleviate those bumps. And then after we get another really good heavy rainstorm like we just had, get the lawn roller out and roll the lawn, and it'll kind of smooth some of those spots out. Or power rake it. Power raking kind of chews up the grass, but it'll kind of spread the mounds of soil around as well too, and kind of level things out again. So that can be helpful.
Thank you so much for your help.
You are so welcome, Carol. Thanks for calling this morning. Have a great weekend.
You bet. Bye.
All right, we'll see you.
And that'll open up the phone lines at 435-753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about squash. How do you know when you can start picking banana squash and some of those other squash that we have coming on? That's coming up following the break here on The Garden Guide on KVNU.
After the hour, I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News Update. It's brought to you by Roof Rescue. Utah Governor Spencer Cox is set to visit Cache Valley on Monday as part of his continued commitment to supporting rural Utah and his One Utah Roadmap 50-day plan. According to a press release that was issued on Friday, Governor Cox will be visiting local business leaders and hearing about expansion plans and understanding the labor challenges in Cache Valley as a part of fostering greater success for everyone in the region. Governor Cox is set to visit the Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce from noon to 1 o'clock, and then Cache Refugee and Immigrant Connection from 2 to 3 o'clock. And a 65-year-old West Point, Utah woman died in a motorcycle crash Friday morning in Soda Springs, Idaho. The crash occurred along 2nd South Street, that's also known as U.S. Highway 30. Idaho State Police report that Susan Brown was driving a 2004 Harley-Davidson. As she was exiting the Maverick parking lot at 10th East and 2nd South to turn west, she was sideswiped by a 2006 GMC Sierra pickup with a horse trailer that was westbound in the right lane. Police indicate that Brown was wearing a helmet and succumbed to her injuries on the scene. The driver of the pickup, meanwhile, Eugene Hullinger, and his passenger, Marjorie Hullinger, both of Manila, Utah, were not injured. ISP reports that U.S. Highway 30 was blocked for approximately an hour in both directions. The crash is under investigation by the Idaho State Police with assistance from Soda Springs Police Department and the Caribou Sheriff's Office. Well, looking at temperatures to stay right around the low 80s through the weekend, with overnight temperatures staying right around the high 40s, with some smoke and haze that is going to continue on and off through the weekend and into the first of next week. Get local news at the bottom of the hour, national and world news at the top of the hour. Will Feelright, KVNU News.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Ant. The Dodgers were looking for their fourth straight win against the Rockies after sweeping the Padres, but C.J. Cron lifted Colorado to a rare win at Chavez Ravine.
Jackson fires. C.J. launches high and deep. How far is this one going to go? To the back end of the Dodgers bullpen. Touch 'em all time for C.J. Cron.
The call on KOA. Rockies win it 4-2. L.A. still remains 2.5 games behind the NL West leading Giants. A preseason NFL surprise. Chiefs quarterback Pat Mahomes played in Friday night's 28-25 win against the Vikings. He was 8 of 9 for 117 yards and 2 TDs. The Super Bowl champ explaining why he wanted to play.
Yeah, I think it was important to me. I mean, obviously coming off injury, you want to go out there and make sure everything's good. And I was able to do that. I was able to move around. I was able to do kind of the stuff that I've always been accustomed to doing.
This is ABC.
Oh boy, this summer's been amazing. Building the new Logan Heritage dealership, getting my son back home, and even adding a new daughter-in-law. In fact, it's been so great, let's celebrate together and have you swing by and pick up a 2021 summer souvenir, a Ram truck from Heritage Auto. The Make This Summer event is still on, but you've got to act fast. Take home a 2021 Ram 1500 with low 1.9% APR financing for 60 months and no monthly payment for the first 90 days. Loaded with features like available 5.7 Hemi, a Uconnect 4 infotainment center. It's no surprise that Ram has been Motor Trend's Truck of the Year 3 years running. The features are great, but nothing beats the memories you'll make for many summers to come. Come to Heritage Auto in Logan, Tremont, and Brigham City, or visit us today at heritageeprice.com. You'll love how easy it is to drive away your new ride. Only at Heritage Auto, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Heritage Auto Group. Heritage, it's what drives our future.
Taking the guesswork out of gardening. It's the Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back. 8:41 now on this Saturday morning, and phone lines are open at 753-5868 and 1-800-369-5868. We have Steve joining us on the line. We're going to get to his call coming up in just 1 minute, but Mark, someone had called in asking about banana squash during our last break, and she didn't have time to hold on the line. But her question was, how do you know the best time to start harvesting that banana squash? What can you look for to know when it's able to be picked?
Great question, because you've got summer squash, which are your zucchinis, crooknecks. You got to harvest those as they come on, because if you don't, then they turn into giant boats, and then the quality's not as good.
Skin gets really hard, and seeds are...
You can harvest them and then put them in the refrigerator, and they'll last for a week or 10 days or so. But you want to get them when they're smaller. But with your winter squash, they do better if you leave them on the vines as long as possible. And so really what we are normally looking for is with their winter squash, we'll leave them out there even if they start to really ripen up until we get that first light frost. And that usually happens end of September, first part of October. And that first light frost will kind of kill the vines down. And then at that point, we'll gather up all the winter squash, and we'll store them in a warm, dry location for a couple weeks to kind of develop that hard outer wrapper skin. But when the fruit is actually ready, you can scrape it with your thumbnail, and no moisture will come up to the surface. And so that's really a good sign that exterior skin has hardened off, and it's cured, and it's gonna store properly. And then the longer they sit, pretty much the sweeter they get. The starch converts to sugar, and then they get sweeter. But you're looking for the proper exterior color. So for a butternut squash, that's going to be a nice buckskin color. For a buttercup squash, that's going to be a deep dark green. For a sweet meat, that's going to be a gray, bluish gray color. For banana squash, it's kind of a pinkish orange color. Yeah. And so you want to watch for that mature coloring. You're going to scrape the exterior with your thumb, and if it's like so hard that it breaks your thumbnail, it's ready.
Yeah. And then spaghetti squash, which is one of our favorites, is that yellow.
Yeah. But if you scrape it with your thumbnail and moisture just instantly bubbles up, it's not ready yet.
Don't want to take it yet.
It's not ready yet. But we'll wait until we get that first light frost, and at that point we will cut the fruit from the vines. So we'll use a pruner. We'll cut the stems so they're about 2 to 4 inches long, and we'll cut them off the vines, and then we'll put them in like the barn or the garage or the shed where it's warm and dry, and get them up off the ground if you can. Put them on some straw or put them on a pallet or something so you get good air circulation around them, and then they'll continue curing that way. We'll leave them out there for like a month sometimes. Last year I left mine a little bit too long, and we got a really, really hard frost, and it damaged about half my squash. Yeah, I lost about half our squash, so it was kind of a bummer because we had so many squash last year, and we lost about half of them to frost. They just deteriorated after that. But you want to put them in a spot where they can cure for a little bit, and then once they're cured, move them inside, put them down in the basement where it's cool and dry, and they'll store for months. We ate squash in February, March that were from from last year, and they held up really, really well. But if you don't cure them properly, they won't store well. And if you let them freeze, then they're toast. Yeah, they're toast. So if you're going to get a hard frost, we will gather those up and we'll bring them in and protect them. But a light frost, not going to damage the fruit at all. And the difference between a light frost and a hard frost is, light frost is 29 and above. Hard frost is 28 and below, and it can freeze with all the moisture in the squash. It'll freeze all that moisture and it'll damage the cell structure, and they're just
turns them into mush.
It does, and they do not taste good after that. So.
And you have that outer covering cured just right when it comes time to actually cook it. If you've got to use a chainsaw
to get into it.
or some other type of chip, like a chisel to get through it.
Axe, works really well.
My wife always says, "Hey, we want to have squash, so bring the saw in from the garage," and then I know, yep,
they're in good shape.
But they last forever.
Yeah, like the Hubbard squash have that really hard exterior. I mean, you have to take them out and throw them on the sidewalk to
crack them open.
Yeah, to get in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to lose a finger trying to use a butcher knife or something. So yeah, you're right. Axe works really well. A mallet and a chisel. And some of those they're nice and hard. But
chainsaws.
That's when they're really good. We've been you can roast them in the oven. We will actually use the pressure cooker. The pressure cooker is amazing for the squash. So you cut it up into pieces. Mm-hmm. You can leave the skin right on it, so you don't even have to peel the skin off. You throw it in the pressure cooker, and you cook it for 7 or 8 minutes. And then when you take it out, the skin just comes right off, and you have basically mashed potato squash. It's kind of comes out soft, and it cooks it so much faster. I mean, it's amazing when you roast it, but it takes
so
forever.
much, so much more time.
So when I want it, and I want it right now.
Yeah.
The pressure
cooker's the way to go.
Awesome. Yeah. It comes out great.
Well, we've got Steve holding on the line. Steve, thanks for holding on through the break. Steve's from Franklin. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you for taking the call. Hey, we've got a problem with our apricots and our peaches with these dang wasps. You go out there and the fruit can still be green, and those things have surrounded each of the fruits. You can't even see a fruit. It looks like you just got a circle of wasps, and they're just chewing the heck out of it. You can't harvest it.
Yeah, they're getting the nectar off of them, so yeah.
It seems like they're ripening them and chewing them, so they ripen faster and then eating them, but we're not getting any of them. It's just like they're eating these things where there's nothing left, them right down to the seeds, and maybe there's pieces of fruit left. How can we get rid of these wasps? What can we do to gain some of our fruit back?
We want to attract the wasps somewhere else, and that helps considerably. So if you can put up some of the wasp or yellow jacket or hornet traps, and then put them close to the orchard but not right in the middle of the orchard, we can attract them away from your fruit and trap them in there. And there's been a lot of wasp population growth this year. They've been just very, very aggressive. Again, I don't know if it's because of the drought or just the weather conditions, but they have been very aggressive this year. And so I've actually had a couple employees that have set up traps, and within a day they were just full. And so you can put those traps up. There's disposable ones you can just like chuck when they're full, or there's reusable ones that you can like empty out once you've caught a whole bunch of them, and then set them up and catch some more. And then I would recommend a safe insecticide that's going to knock them down without affecting your harvest limitations. So if you're using like the fruit tree spray from Fertilome, it has pyrethrum in it, which will kill wasps and hornets very nicely. But you can use it right up to the day of harvest since it's a natural insecticide. And so you could spray it right up until a day or two before you're going to harvest, and it won't affect you as well too. So the triple action or the fruit tree spray from Fertilome would be great. The other option would be to use a product like Sevin. Sevin has a new formulation to it, and the new formula you can use up to about a day or two before harvest. I think on peaches it might be like 3 days, but even then you could use it up to 3 days before you're going to harvest that fruit, and you can knock those pests down before they really start to do damage to the fruit as well. So I'd probably use a combination of both. Use the traps and the spray.
That's what we were worried about, is putting chemicals on there then where we were canning them to have them be bad. So
Exactly.
there's stuff that you can put on them and not have it get in your fruit for canning.
If you're concerned about any type of pesticide, use the fruit tree spray from Fertilome, because it's an all-natural formula. It breaks down fairly quickly, but it still gives you about a week, 10 days residual. But you can use it right up to the day that you're going to harvest. So I wouldn't worry about it a bit.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. Thank you.
You are so welcome, Steve. Good luck with your wasps.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
And we were talking about wasps. I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago, because they are just everywhere.
Yeah, very
this
aggressive.
year.
Yeah, very aggressive.
We were out just shooting off the house, just kind of cleaning up the exterior of the house, and I came across 3 to 4 nests that had sprung up, and there's it's one of those things where. We found we put up a lot of hummingbird feeders this year, and we've been attracting hummingbirds like crazy.
Yeah.
But the wasps found out about it, and it's like, hey, let's go over to that place because they've got sugar water,
free buffet,
dangling right there. And so it's one of those things where you do have to use those traps just to be able to try to get those wasps away, because you're not going to be able to get rid of them altogether.
No. Oh, and flies. The last few days, we've had so many people coming in for the fly traps. Now, the trick with the fly traps is there's one that's been around for quite a few years. I'll bet it's been on the market for 25 years. They work amazing, but they stink. They smell so awful. Like you can't put it on your patio. You want to put it on the furthest reaches of your property and attract the flies there instead of attracting them to your deck. And then there's another one that's actually made by Raid that came out just a couple of years ago. Not as potent of a smell, so you can keep that closer to your living areas. You absolutely don't use it inside. Do not use them inside. They're made for outdoors, but it's not quite as offensive of smell as the original one. But with the wasp traps, whether it's the Y traps, which will do wasps and hornets and yellow jackets, or the yellow jacket traps, make sure that you don't put them right next to the pool. Don't put them right next to the deck or right next to the patio where you're grilling. Put them out away from those areas to attract them to a different location. We don't want to attract them to your patio or to the pool. You want to put them out away from that area, so you're attracting them somewhere else, so they're not bothering you as well.
And a shady area. I mean, we found that we tried to hang just a wasp trap out in the middle of the backyard where there's no shade at all, and we kept thinking, why aren't the wasps catching it? But then we started thinking, well, wait a minute. The wasps aren't going to go out into the middle of the yard where it's so hot.
Yeah. Where there's trees and shrubs and things, where there's other vegetation, that's going to be the best place to put it. So they really do work. I mean, they work amazingly well, but you've got to use them properly, and they'll work better.
Yeah,
they work better.
We do have some time for maybe 1 or 2 more phone calls at 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. I had one other caller call in, and he asked about, what about eating squash blossoms?
Oh, yes, they are edible. So the blossoms that come off of like your zucchinis, those are very sought-after delicacies. So very, very tasty, really nice flavor. So you can actually eat those blossoms.
And how would you go about preparing them?
A little saute, just saute,
Oh, okay.
just saute them, just quick. I mean, because they'll cook instantly. You know, they cook really fast, but just a quick sear, and away you go. So yeah. So
I've not tried that.
I know there's a lot of chefs that they will use that in their cooking, and a very, very nice. Very nice delicacy.
Squash blossom.
Yeah, squash blossom. So absolutely, especially where they produce so much, you can get them. But I mean, the blossoms only last for a day.
Yeah,
so you got to harvest.
gone.
You got to harvest them like first thing in the morning and go for
Okay.
it. So yeah, but that is actually a thing.
Earlier we talked about, and we hadn't gotten to it yet, potatoes and onions, harvesting those.
And we want to plant garlic as well,
Oh,
too.
yes.
So, yeah, we got to plant garlic. So my potatoes are done. Vines have died down. They've kind of started to grow back a little bit because of the moisture.
The rain.
Yeah, which is usually not a good thing. We don't want them to grow. So generally by the time we get to the 1st of September, the potatoes are done. They're ready to be harvested. And you want to get them harvested before the temperatures really start to cool down. We start to get a lot of moisture because they'll start to grow again. And so the potatoes themselves will grow knobby. You'll get these funny growths coming off the potatoes. So they won't be like a nice oval shape. They'll have these growths coming off the potatoes. And that's where they've started to grow some more after part of the potato has cured and isn't going to grow any longer. And so you want to get them harvested before that happens. And so even though in Idaho they do their harvest in the first part of October, it's because the potatoes that they're growing up there, especially the big, Idaho russets, they take an extra 30 days to mature. Our potatoes that we're planting in our vegetable gardens
are not that big.
No, and they don't take that extra 30 days. They're ready right now. Yeah, they should be ready right now. So now's the time to really start getting those harvested. So what we'll do with the potatoes is usually I'll do it in the late afternoon, early evening. Dig all those potatoes up. You can let them kind of sit out overnight, but we don't want the sun to shine on to hit the potatoes. So dig them up in the evening. Maybe sit them out there overnight so the soil can dry on them, and then gather them up first thing in the morning. And you can kind of rub them a little bit, and the excess soil will come off. And then we'll just put them right directly into burlap sacks, and then put them into storage right away. Okay. And the potatoes like to be in a cooler location. They don't want to go into a warm, dry location. Cool and just a little bit of moisture is really good for those. So right directly into the basement, right directly into the cellar with the potatoes. But you don't want the sun on them because then they'll start to turn green. And so no sunlight. So a lot of people, if they're going to dig them up, they don't have the time. You can just dig them up, rub the excess dirt off, put them in the burlap sacks, and just right straight into your storage location. But if you're going to let them sit out, make sure it's just like overnight where the sun doesn't really get on the potatoes at all. With the onions, best thing to do is if they're still growing, we want to stop their growth. And so we'll step on the tops very lightly and just kind of break the tops just a little bit with your foot. You can just like step on it and just kind of press the tops over and stop the growth. And then we'll usually let them stay in the ground for another 5 or 6 days after that. And then we'll dig them up and turn them upside down out in the garden. Do this when it's not going to rain, because we're going to leave them outside for a day or two so the roots on the bottom will dry up.
Dry out.
Yeah, and so dig the onions up, turn them upside down so the root's exposed. Let the sun hit those for a day or two. It'll dry the roots up. And then at that point, we'll gather them up. We'll put them into a warm, dry location in the barn, in the shed, in the garage. Warm and dry for probably 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even a little bit longer. And that's when they're going to develop that hard outer wrapper skin on the onions. If it's a yellow onion, it's going to go a nice golden color. If it's a red onion, it's going to go dark red. And develop that outer skin. And then we'll trim the tops off, put them in an onion sack. And I have burlap sacks and onion bags for sale at the store, and they're not very expensive. They're like 75 cents each. So they're but if you need bags, we've got the bags to store the onions.
Put those in.
Yeah, and the potatoes as well too. So they're really inexpensive. And with the onions, 3 to 4 weeks in the warm, dry location. Take the tops off, put them in the sacks, and then hang them up in the cool, dry location, down in the basement, down in your storage, and that's going to be perfect for those onions.
Okay.
We're going to have to talk garlic next week.
Yeah, garlic will be next week.
Yes.
But let's mention again the cash sale going on this weekend.
Right now, yeah. So the cash sale is going on right now. If you come in and you want to buy trees or shrubs or flowering shrubs or evergreens, they're on sale. They're 35% off. But if you pay with cash, you're going to get that extra 15% off. You're going to get them for 50% off or half price. And so come in, bring some cash with you, and that's the way to go. It's like we're clearancing out the trees and shrubs. There's still some great selections there, but we've gone through a lot of plants the last few weeks. Yeah,
okay,
for sure. Cash sale.
Cash sale is coming up, and we'll be back next week to talk about planting garlic. We'll put that at the top of the list.
Top of the list for next week, and I'm sure there'll be other things to talk about.
And it'll be Labor Day weekend, so a lot going on. You've been listening to The Garden Guide, Safe Money Radio from Teton Wealth Group, coming up next.
Program of Commercial Time on KVNU. The information, offers, and stories.
This is a situation that is rapidly spinning out of control.
Get it all here. News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM and